Hey guys, welcome to BP, the Bible Perspective. Are Republicans, conservatives, Christian conservatives, are they truly pro-life? Now before I get into it, please like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a comment or a question, add it in the comment section below. All comments are welcome. Now, this issue of pro-life, which is one of the main platforms of the political Christian right or conservative movement. You hear it all the time. One of the major tenets is abortion. Now, you kind of have to understand that the genesis of the political movement of the Christian right, which began in the 60s, probably, and gained strength in the 70s, and then really took off in the 80s. But you have to kind of go back, and you have to remember that the conservative movement, and by the way, conservatism and Christians are really two different things, although they can share the same platform. In other words, many Christians are conservative when you think about what conservative values are. Now, you can even argue, well, which came first, chicken or egg kind of thing. Did conservatism come first, or did Christian values come first? And I would argue that Christian values came first. But the idea of what conservatism is as an ideology is different than the Christian movement. Now, as I just said, they share values. And that is the key thing. That when they say politics makes strange bedfellows, well, so does ideology. And so there are many conservatives that share some of the same values of the Christian movement. Now in the 60s, the Christian movement coming out of what's called the golden age of America, the 40s and the 50s. Keep in mind, the 50s saw a very shocking time to the religious right. At the time, America had began to lose its values or innocence. When Elvis was twerking, they call it twerking today, but twisting his hips. That was unthinkable back then. But it also signifies a left shifting ideology. And by the time he got to the 60s, with the full-blown sexual countercultural movement, the hippie movement, the Christian right was in full alarm mode. Thus, they decided to enter into the political arena. Now, you have to understand that there were several things that were at play then. One, the country was majority white. We're talking about overwhelming numbers of white. I often say this, that when you think about the kind of white population, you look at it this way, this way. And when you look at it in terms of the influence, you look at it this way. I'll get back to that in a moment. Back then, as the leading conservative Christian leaders saw the threat to America, their white America, they decided to get involved politically. And they decided there were several platforms that they were going to have as talking points. Now, that's okay in terms of political, because you need that. What are your talking points? What are your focus points? The problem, of course, is that conservatism and Christian conservatism married. And if you were talking the same values, God, country, patriotism, it didn't matter if you was an adulterer, it didn't matter other sins, you were sharing these shared values. One of those values, of course, was abortion, then also anti-gay. There was also pornography, anti-pornography, prayer in school. Of course, they since abandoned that value because that's a lost cause at this point. There's a flicker of hope, but I don't believe any of them really think that they're going to revive that. Some of the 2 points that I want to focus on, or actually one, but 2 points that have kind of survived, however, throughout the 70s and the 80s and 90s, and now we're in the new millennium, abortion and gay rights. And gay rights is fast losing its flame. But the anti-abortion, which now, when you look at the Christian right or conservatives or Republicans, they're focusing on, for example, Planned Parenthood. That's the demon face right now. If Planned Parenthood is the all evils of values, right? I'm not going to get into a debate as to whether or not Planned Parenthood in and of itself is not evil. Don't support it, never have supported. The problem is that when you make it that focused, it's a problem, of course, with the Christian right movement as they've jumped into the political arena and their talking points. All of a sudden now you share political beds with people who are not godly, who don't necessarily share all of your values. And that brings me to the point of abortion. Like I say, they focus on Planned Parenthood as the all-in-all demon child. Well, let's say, for example, if you got rid of Planned Parenthood, would abortion stop? Well, absolutely not. Now, there's a still battle going on because though abortion is legal federally, states have been passing laws to make it very difficult for abortion providers to exist. Now, must understand me now. I'm not here supporting abortion in any way. But let's kind of get back to what the issue is. So oftentimes you have the Republicans now who are demonizing, demonizing Democrats or conservatives demonizing liberals. And one of the main issues, there are others, but one of the main issues, of course, is this issue of abortion. Now, back in the 60s, of course, the abortionists, and that's what it was actually called back then, they were losing their battle. But one of the most brilliant things that they did was they changed the terminology. And they said, we're now pro-choice. Of course, you can come up with different ads. It's just simply your choice. If you choose to have a child, if you choose not to have a child, it's your choice. And even on certain television programs, you have people wrestle with getting pregnant and then having an abortion. Now, because the overwhelming tide of public opinion is still pro-life, they may show that the person did not have an abortion. Now, you may think that's a win, but it's a loss for them, but it's actually a win because their point is she made a choice. And here's the thing. So even though she made a choice for life, she can also make that choice to terminate the child. Here's the other problem, though. If you say, as a Christian, that you are now pro-life and now you're going to demonize, right, anyone who is not pro-life. And so you hear these statements. I hear people all the time on Facebook and on YouTube and different other social media platforms, in which they will say, how can you be a Democrat? Murdercrats, right? How can you be a Christian and be and vote Democratic? You're voting to kill babies, right? Well, here's the problem with that. And as I said before, when you enter into a political arena and then you adapt certain talking points, then all of a sudden that makes for strange bedfellows. The pro-life movement, like I say, the brilliant strategy, media strategy of the abortionists is when they changed the marketing, their branding. They wasn't just pro-abortion, they said pro-choice. So now, when you talk about, now it becomes an argument between pro-choice and then pro-life. But here's the problem. What is pro-life? Well, we know what pro-choice is. Pro-choice is, here's what they would say, the choice to choose. In other words, it's not necessarily pro-abortion, even though it is pro-abortion, but it's simply the choice. They want the choice to choose. So if you want to have the baby, fine. If you don't want to have the baby, fine. But make no mistake, choosing to terminate a life is the choice. All right. But what is the choice? By the way, let me just tell you the argument of the choice. We don't always get to make choices. Like, for example, I cannot come up and go slap the stew out of our president. I don't have that choice, okay? Even though I want to. My point is, it was a brilliant strategy. But it all centers around what is the life of a child. Now, when you go back to the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, they were arguing that the human fetus, and that's what they was calling it. They called it a fetus for a reason. That a fetus wasn't a viable life. It was just tissue, mash. Of course, the bigger question was to them that they never answer. They never answer. When did it become a life? If you say outside of the room, well, wait a minute, there has to be things there in order for it to be alive. Of course, now that we have ultrasound, and we didn't even need ultrasound before that. If you were a mother, you knew there was a life growing on the inside of you. Now, make no mistake about it, that when people say that the fact that they dulled their senses to be able to say that a child in the womb is not a life, that's a sinful attitude. That is the problem with that. But okay, now let's come back to the Christian right. Let me read this one verse of scripture found in Ezekiel chapter 18. Now keep in mind, I'm using a Holman Christian Standard Bible. And it says right here, verse 4 is, look, every life belongs to me. The life of the Father is like the life of the Son. Both belong to me. I wanted to bring that out because it says every life. Of course, the question is, when does life begin? And of course, from the left perspective, they are full of contradiction as to that life. In other words, it's a life if you want the child, but it's a fetus if you don't want the child. Okay. The Christian right now has adopted this platform as to say that the kind of main thrust of the argument, the heart of what America should be about, is the abortion right. So then they say, okay, if you are a Democrat, they can use that to demonize the Democrats to say that if you are a Democrat, that you are for abortion, which means you're for murdering babies. You're not a Christian. But are they really pro-life? Because here's what you find out, that they're not. Now remember here we said, I read the scripture in Ezekiel, all life belongs to God. But yet, there are compromises in the pro-life movement. For example, people champion Donald Trump as the most pro-life president ever. And he's not even close. But like many Republicans and even Christians, they compromise on the issue of, well, in the case of rape and incest, or the life of the mother, then abortion is okay. That means you're not pro-life. You see, all life, one, remember, belongs to God. So if you compromise and say that abortion is okay in the case of rape and incest, and where the life of the mother is threatened, then you're saying it's okay to kill those babies because they're life. Now, one Christian friend, he tends to not talk with me, mainly because of my anti-Trump sentiments. But he tried to put it to me this way, or put it like this: he tried to reason with me this way. Hypothetically, what if you could save, or hypothetically, if the life of 100,000 babies was at stake? In other words, if you don't do anything, 100,000 babies will be killed. Then you say we can pass a law. And yet, in that law, we can make a provision for the life of the mother, in case of rape and incest, and case of rape and incest. Excuse me, rape and incest. Okay, which means hypothetically, let's say if we could save 25,000 babies by making that one concession. He says, wouldn't it be worth it? Now keep in mind, this is a fantasy. In other words, this is not even true. And he's already compromised on that. In other words, you don't even have that on the table. In other words, abortion is legal constitutionally all over the country. But even with that, I said, the 25 babies, let's go back to this verse right here, because every life, those 25,000 babies, hypothetically, belongs to God. And we don't have the right to murder or kill. And that's the issue with their compromise. So when they say that they're pro-life, not really. You're not fully pro-life. You're conditional pro-life. But that's not God. It is not a godly position. It is not a Christian position. Now, it may be a Christian right, but that's a political agenda. And your political agenda doesn't square up with Scripture. That's my perspective. And don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP The Bible Perspective. Till next time, see you then.